Hi friends, good morning. It is an honor and privilege, I would call, to speak to all of you on such an interesting subject of unifying resilience, transparency, and nicely the word has been put also sustainability, which is very close to my heart also. My special thanks goes to the Programming Asia team for organizing this. I would say this is an excellent and timely conference around. Friends, we all know, as Shantanu also touched on this, that COVID-19 has been a world-changing event. One of the events I can see around, one thing I can see is that even now, we're all working from home and the culture has changed, which has disrupted most of the, I would say, the sectors. If you talk of any company, majority have been affected, and worldwide economies also have been affected. For some organizations, I know the problem is the near-term survival is the only agenda item, how to get over this. Because there's a cash crunch around. I know governments are coming with supports around, but for many of us, I would call it is the peering the fog of uncertainty, the fog which we were seeing in Delhi, Gurgaon. Now I think we are getting out of the peering the fog of the uncertainty and thinking about how to position ourselves. One thing is clear, I would call, based on my experience around, the business world has changed, the business model has changed. So naturally, we need to change for survival and growth. We cannot live with a legacy system around. Even the legacy skills are also going to change around. COVID-19, I would call, is proving to be a decisive turning point. My presentation will focus on navigating supply chain for taming, as rightly he said around, for taming the black swans around. Now, I know some people say it's a white swan, a black swan. I'll touch on this part. Now, I think we are ready for this. When we talk of the COVID-19, a black swan event, obviously it is unexpected and the impact has been wide, big one, I would say, around in essentially first time, and most of us have seen first time this type of event around. Hard to predict, high impact event, that's what we're calling black swan event. So when we talk about black swan event, that means we have to become more robust in procurement and supply chain. That's what we look around. So if we say the disruption, when we talk of disruption, what could be the sources of disruption? And those disruptions are also having a domino effect. Technology is one, ecosystem is another one, environment could be another one, fluctuations could be another one. Fluctuation in supply and demand, which we have seen. I know in the good old days when I went through 70s and 80s and 90s, and I can talk of all those decades around, very easy to predict the forecast, what I'm going to do next year. But now the fluctuations are so much, the demand is changing, what you plan even a month back, and then you say, guys, oh, this month planning was this, but actual is different. So how do I cope up with this? So those fluctuations are there, the technologies are coming in a big way. And people want ecosystem. It is not working in isolation, in a silo thinking around. In the good old days, we could work in a silos and my job is done well. But now the concept which supply chain has taught us is to integrate end to end. Even within procurement, there are a wide range of functions. Integrating even the suppliers also. Integrating even the, I would say, the buyers also. Buyers, customers, everybody around, so that every information is available to you at the tip of the button. Environment is another aspect, so this is where we are going to talk about sustainability issues. Another thing, if I look from purely from procurement, because many of you are from procurement side, environmental factor is there around. Globalization, I think we learned a lot this time. When I came from the college at the business school in the 80s in the US, the focus was all on globalization. And I worked a lot of projects around with many companies in the US of outsourcing to the low-cost country. And I have a very good experience of working with those, how we went down to the low-cost country. And we thought this is not for us. Let them do it. And we become the value chain to assemble them and sell all over the world. So those globalization we have gone through, but now we're learning a lesson, guys. Now from globalization, now people are talking of near sourcing around. Sustainability is becoming a problem around. Compliance is also major issues around. Technologies, can I do this in a robotic way? Can I do this in a way? I don't have the latest information, that is it. But now people want just at the press of a button, I should know the status of my things around. So technology is also creating a big change around. Now, this study was done some time back. Now, this talks about which are the stable things where I can carry on, and which are the disruptive, I would say, changes happening around. Obviously, the risk. Now, the risk has become very unpredictable. So you could call resilience, sustainability, transparency, analytics. So I was very happy when Shantanu said we want to basically unify all of them, which are more disruptive. Transparency is not there. It may take ages to take a decision, and it's too late. Sustainability and the risk. Again, the risk has taken the shape of resilience now. Analytics are also become. So those are the ones which we need to unify per se. If you just take one typical disruption in a normal situation, the warnings are there all the time. But sometimes we are very hard-skinned guys. Oh, nothing will happen. Don't worry. Oh, this comes and goes. Even if you talk of COVID-19, it was already there in November 2018 in China. January went, February went, till it attacked us. Then we say, guys, now we have to take an impact on it. The first response started. So things got delayed. The first response came a little later. Then to prepare, response is one thing, but to prepare to act on it, it takes longer time. And by the time the dip has come, the dip was so deep, and then we say, guys, now we have the full impact, now let's start recovering it. But even recovering, the damage is done. So this is where I would love to again explain around is the three, when we are designing a supply chain, those who are from the supply chain, when I have to design the supply chain, I want my supply chain either to be very robust, very resistant. I damn care, I keep a big inventory of the stocks with me. I keep my company which can do big productions around, even if the need is there or not. I keep a stock of materials around. But then I'm very unproductive in that way, inefficient around, not cost effective around. Second design I could do it, guys, it is flexible. When the problem come, I can change my demand. But then the next issue, agile. Agile mean, guys, I should be responsive. If my customer comes up, in spite of all the problem, environmental changes around, or economic condition changing around, I should be agile. The next part comes in the resilient part. So I try to explain these things around in an other way around. Now, resilience means ability to endure foreseen and unforeseen changes. These changes were unforeseen, which we saw the last year. And we are still going through that without adopting anything. So those are the supply risks. So robustness, if I improve my robustness in my organization, I am able to cover up my supply risk. So if I talk of upstream and downstream, because at the end of the day, supply chain is all connecting upstream and downstream. Upstream can be controlled through robustness, but downstream can be controlled through agility. So agility talks about react to unforeseen changes in the environment in unforeseen, unplanned manner, because I've not planned it. COVID-19, it was unforeseen, unplanned. So that's where we're talking about agility part. The last is resilience. Now, I could improve my robustness, but at a big cost. I'm draining my funds. So I need to be agile, I agree with that. But then we have to be also that, and if I talk about the good old days, when I came from the colleges in the 80s around, in the US, we used to talk of just in time, lean. I'm not removing the concepts away, but now the focus has come on agility part. Guys, I should be able to respond. It's good to be lean, fine. But if I'm not able to respond, I lose my customer. So keep in mind there are two terms around supply risk. On the upstream side, downstream side is a customer risk. But even if I want to manage individually those two, my business performance may not be so good. So resilience is all about the business performance. Is the ability to survive unforeseen changes around in the environment that have a severe and enduring impact. And these environment, the word when I'm using around, it is all. It could be political environment, it could be pandemic, it could be climatic, it could be anything. So those changes are there around. So we have to focus on this. But technically all are linked together. Even if I talk of resilience, so I have to unify other things as well. Here gives a little definition of the rule of thumb, if I say around for the resilience. When faced primarily by risk, risk concept has been there. I know when I was based in the US, we used to talk a lot of business continuity. And when we used to talk business continuity, we were only looking at the risk factors around risk management. Guys, these are the possible risks. Potential is so much, probability is so much, the weightage is so much. We used to do it. And then based on that, we used to do the business continuity model. And I had a chance to work on those things around. We had a 200 country offices. We used to work it out. But then when it comes to dealing with uncertainty, like COVID-19, it is more appropriate to invest in improving recovery capability. And that is what we call the resilience. Now here again, I'm trying to explain those resilience factors around avoidance. If I can avoid, great. I can contain it. Impact could be made shorter. Then I can switch back so that I can return faster. I don't have an impact for a long time. I can stabilize it. So there are 4 components around. So based on this, if I want to draw the tree of supply chain resilience, I want a resilience. I want a good business performance. But again, there is 2 components, resistance. I can avoid. I can contain it to some extent. Then I can recover back fast without major impact. So this is in a broad sense, if I say resilience, resistance has to be improved, recovery has to become faster, the way I've shown the previous slide to you. So stabilization and return part. Now comes around, if I draw this in a matrix form, I'm working in a company and I'm designing my supply chain. I say, guys, okay. And supply chain and procurement is a big part of it. Let's be very honest about it. So I have to build the resistance capacity. I have to improve my recovery capacity. So resistance capacity, certainly I can do if I put more money into this, I keep a big stock around, I have resistance. So I could become resistant but sluggish when I go on the higher side. But if my recovery capacity is poor, my chain is not working properly, I'm not agile enough, then I'm very fragile. If resistance is poor, I'm very lean, my recovery capacity is very poor, I'm fragile. But if my recovery capacity is good, I've got a lot of antibodies around, I've got a good resistance, and I'm hardy. I can manage all this. So one has obviously limited funds around, every company has a limited fund. It depends where do they want to focus. Do they want to focus on resistance? Do they want to focus on recovery capacity? You need a good blend of those two. So when we design it, we try to find a good blend of the two parameters before I can say, guys, this is going to be my lead time and this is going to be my minimum size of the batch around. So we work on that basis. Now, resilience cycle, the way you saw it, starts from avoidance, goes up to containment, goes up to stabilization and return. But that does not mean that you are overcoming for the next one. If you want to avoid the next one, if future something happen of similar nature, again unpredictable, you need to review from the past. You have to think of avoidance. Then you have to really think in a much longer perspective also. It is not only covering that particular disruption, you have to think of how to avoid the disruption in the future. This is where when we designed it, if I want now based on those parameters of disruption and based on the tree which I showed you around, I want to design my resilient supply chain. Because procurement also has a chain. You may call procurement chain. At the end of the day, you place an order, the delivery is happening, the supply chain is there. So sometimes people use the word procurement and supply chain connectivity together. I know if you talk about supply chain in a bigger way, that's a different story, but procurement also has got a chain. So we try to design, first thing is we look at the agility part. Am I agile? Can I respond if need comes suddenly? My feeding is not coming from the back end, but my customers are asking for it, I'm able to demand, serve the purpose. That is only possible if I have a visibility. If I don't know for months and months that my supplier is having a problem, then my visibility is poor. Let me tell you my own personal examples around. We had a big project in Iraq. of around $80 million. And we were laying down the copper cable for 3,000 kilometers. And those were coming from China, one supplier. And ultimately, whenever we used to ask them, guys, because that company was having a problem with, it's not a tier one supplier, it's a tier one supplier. They were depending on tier two, and tier two was depending on tier three, the raw material wise. We are only dealing with the tier one. And tier one will always tell some stories around, and this goes on months and months. So then I had a chance to visit them. Then I found the problem is not with the tier one, the problem is with the tier two or tier three, some down the line. But that visibility we never thought around. Now that culture is changing with all of us, that we are not limiting our visibility only to the tier one, we are going further. And now going further doesn't mean that I'm going to travel every time. I want a system which connects all of them. And then once I know the system, then I can see, guys, okay, this guy is only a assembler, is a value adder, but something is coming from somewhere. The raw material is coming from X country. With that country, the relationships have gone bad. So the whole chain could have been disturbed. Velocity. Even if I come to know that I am short of this and this is going to happen, am I able to push my velocity? How do I do it? Can I add another supplier? Then come the supply chain collaboration. This is where again comes up around, procurement is not a silo function now in the years to come. You guys need to work with other partners also within your own organizations. It's a collaborative planning. And even with the suppliers also a part of it if you want. You need a supply chain intelligence also around. Now question comes, you want intelligence, you want to work collaborative, you want a visibility. You can't do manual system around. The legacy system will not work. If some of you think that my ERP can do it, no. You have to move further than ERP. You need e-tools around. You need certainly digital tools around. So those digital tools, I know my other friends will be covering up in the subsequent sessions around. You need them. Supply chain engineering. You need to understand that. Supply chain design. So this is the parameter. Then we have board level responsibility. You need a support from them as well. A culture in the company also. Some people are complacent. They say, guys, it's going on. Don't worry. Don't teach us. We've been doing for 30 years. So we become complacent. That culture has to change. Guys, risk can come anytime. So that approach is changing around. Okay, this is the navigating the road. I mean, the way we have all gone through it. First thing was light on. We shot because funds were not there. The money was not there. We were going with the very first step, guys. Some way my company should just survive. Okay. Then we were thinking of managing the rebound. This is what we have seen in the last 6 months. Lowering the cost base. Now everybody is talking about the cost base. And Shantanu was also saying, guys, can I cut my staff around? Are those, whether it's a good or bad, I leave it to each company to decide. Then repositioning, guys. No, okay, now I've started limping and I'm okay, able to stand on my feet. Can I reposition myself now? But then after that, now you're going up the race. Risk management, decentralized procurement, all those things, transparencies, closer supplier relationship, digital sourcing, those concepts are now picking up around. Here comes the tomorrows and todays. Let's say, if I talk of still today, based on my experience in India now for the last 10 years, because around 30 years I was in the US and other countries around. When I see in India, still we are mostly in the tactical stage. I've been to, I would say, all the major companies around in India. So tactical part was still, I would say, it's improved, still 60%. Strategic part, maybe 30 to 40%. I remember the time when I started my career, suppose there are 100 people in a procurement function. 80 people were doing tactical and operational functions. I've got a production plan, I've got a procurement plan, and just work on the plan. But very few were working and aligning with the corporate mission and the vision part. Thinking long-term agreements. It started in the 80s and I had a chance to work on it when I was based in Copenhagen. We had a chance to work on it. So strategic was a major thing. But now the trend which I see in the Western country, more in the Europe and somewhat in the US as well, strategic is the key thing around. So strategic should be if my team is there around 100, 80% people should be working on the strategic issues and 20% on this. But with this approach, I can cut short my number also and become more productive. So that is what we are expecting tomorrow to be there around. Okay, post-COVID-19 eras, many of us are watching through this shift toward localizations. People are looking at it. Digital gets real, I would say, push around. That is the major impact which we have seen. People have been talking of digitalization for many, many years. I've been in India. But last year has given a big push. I think COVID-19 was a great push for digitalization. So digital adoption also. Cash is the king. Now, as again, Shantanu also said about, there's a short of funds. And you have to be very careful where to spend money. You can think of big ideas, great. But you don't have money around. So you have to be cash is king for business. Move towards variable cost models, building, sensing, and control tower. This concept is picked up a lot. You talk of logistics, you talk of supply chain, everywhere control towers are coming up. And those control towers connect everybody around. Supply chain resilience is the key. Building agility is the key. This is the word which is becoming, some may call buzz, but I would say it's becoming the real thing around now. This is beautiful thing, which I again explained, moving from tactical to strategy. Strategy is ugly duck. The old-fashioned model, that's why I'm calling ugly duck. If you talk of 70s, I started my career with the design, let me be honest with you. And later on, when I went to the US, I found supply chain is the best field. But it was ugly duck. If you ask any qualified person to come into procurement, still people avoid it. Now that ugly duck is getting through transformation. And transformation means, if you can see the term up and down, strategic transformation. That's what attracts the smart people around. Digital transformation. Not this way around that everybody's working on operation, firefighting. I've seen those days. So moving from firefighting approach to strategic transformation, digital transformation, the whole ugly duck story, which I know Hans Andersen wrote around in 1843, beautiful thing, but the change is happening around. So this is what we need to go through it. Sustainable part, certainly I know still people talk about the bottom line, is financial part. Now people have seen the climatic change. We have seen the sometimes beautiful weather also when COVID-19 was there. No pollutions around. I could see Himalayas around from here. So what it shows around is people are thinking, guys, bottom line is not only the money part. We have to see the other parameters as well. The social benefits around, environmental goals around. I make big money, but I pollute everything around the rivers and this, and people's health are affected. Who's going to pay for it? Somebody has to pay. So I think the social benefits, environmental goals, that should be typically part of this around. So in basic, keeping in mind the transparency part, keeping in mind the sustainability part and agility part, we need a different framework around. So all of us, whether we talk of a procurement framework or we talk of a supply framework, broadly we need to develop our own framework around, which should focus on collaboration, focus on flexibility, again, agility there also around, visibility also, and sustainability. Now, this is how the change is happening very fast. 80s, when I had a chance to start from that time strategic procurement, making long-term agreements. Then we moved to the e-procurement. Still in India, if I say around e-procurement, still to pick up. Only 10% companies, top companies. And then next one comes with the digital part. If I don't have a e-data around, I can't analyze the data. I don't have any analytics around. How can I do digital? So this is where the change has to go around. Many people have still to struggle with strategic, which dates back to 1980s. Now we're talking of e-procurement, and the next step is digital. So if I have to say in this one, if I want to be in the digital, mean my source to contract, sourcing, now I'm saying source to P1, S to P1 becomes predictive. My system should predict based on data, based on analytics. Procurement P2P, also procure to pay, becomes automated. I'm not saying for all the items, some operational item will remain, but in the bigger sense, that needs then my supplier, I won't say supplier relationship, I would say risk management wise, supplier risk management become proactive. My risk can be identified automatically. Guys, Krishan, you're going to have trouble this time. This supplier is not able to deliver you. So I have information all the time there. So that is only possible if we have gone into the digital world. Now here because we do specialize on this, my headquarter in the US, also ISM USA, we focus also on identifying the maturity of the companies. I know in 70s, when I was in Tata's, we were working on MRPs. I had a chance to work on it. Then we came with ERP, and ERP I linked with Procurement 2.0. If somebody says, what is my maturity level? I say, you have only ERP, then means you're close to Procurement 2.0. Then we talk of e-procurement, then I can say you are Procurement 3.0, and the last one is Procurement 4.0. That is the one, is the digital one. So keep in mind, if somebody has to do the maturity part, we have developed a playbook on that. Somebody wants to know it, we will be very happy to provide an access. Each one of you can check yourself what level you are. Broadly, I can tell you in India, even the best companies I've come across, they are around 3.4, 3.5, not 5 out of 5. So you need to see your maturity level. The new normal, as I said to you, anti-globalizations, and then move away from the offshoring to nearshoring. Yesterday, we were having a workshop with Asian countries, and I was moderating it. And in that Asian countries, we were looking around how India could be the supply chain hub. I know from the top, we're hearing around that India will be the supply chain hub. It's very easy to say, but there's a lot of work to be done. So anti-globalization, the nearshoring part, certainly, technology adoptions around, and then consumer behaviors have changed. And the new society which is going to come up, India is people of young generation, average age is 35. So Generation Z, which is 18, 19, are going to come, leave the college and join. They're very digital in nature. So this is what the change is bound to be happening around. Digital journey, yes, it has started already. I would say this push has come up in a big way, the post-COVID-19. This is moving fast. You talk to any company, everybody's talking of this one around. And I will say digitalization will basically bring down the walls and create the whole silos concept will go away. Ecosystem will come up around, and technology is rendering the old fundamentals of supply chain obsolete. Again, concepts of learning, unlearning, and learning. So some of us will have to unlearn the old thoughts around. I think personally, since I've been from 70s till now in this field, and I've been associated with technology in a big way, I can see the changes are happening enormously. The person who went through COBOL and Fortran training, you can say around EDI standards, and now I see these all things, changes are enormously happening around. So we have to unlearn the old thing and move into the faster world around. This is the one, if you want to check your digital maturity model, we have again a playbook available with us, and we can help you to assess yourself, where do you stand. The role of procurement people, which is bound to change, and I can say is better to accept it. We are no more cost cutter alone, the bottom line. We are also revenue generator. If I can add values, then I'm a revenue generator. Strategy focus, data hub, value chain facilitator, strategic sourcer, third-party risk management, sustainability champions. Sustainability may be in the packaging, sustainability in the goods around, material itself, we can talk around. Strategic partners, innovation lead. So innovation is becoming key thing around. And in the innovation, we can bring strategy, sustainability part also there. But change the materials. So another thing which I talked about, the control tower is becoming very powerful nowadays. Many companies in India have all started getting into this. You're connecting everybody together. Everybody has the latest information around. It's not going from one person to another person. The sales guy will tell operation guy will tell the procurement guy. No, it's going, everybody is connected together. So those concepts are picking up around. It's no more a linear path. The file will not move from one to another, another to another. It's moving in a circular way. So the technology which are disruptive, I know my friends will be covering up later. So these are the disruptive, artificial intelligence is there, robotic process automation. People are moving into particularly P2P, procure to pay, robotic process automation, IoT part, This I've seen some companies, they were hiring in a big way even during COVID-19 for IoT. So those are the ones. This area is also picking up in a big Internet of Things around. Blockchain, where I have my heart there around because I had a chance to work on these projects before leaving the UN, and then others. Some of the technology, if I want to say the future of digital technology, is a combination of IoT, AI, and RP. It's beautifully, I can say around, is combining IoT is like your eyes, sensors. And that data goes to the brain, and then your artificial intelligence, and then you have got actions tracking around. Whether you move your arm or you do this, it's a combination of this. So this gives a beautiful understanding what we're talking around. What function to digitize first? This is very important. I know there's a push for digitization, digital adoption. Everybody wants to go it. But again, old advice works here. Don't, everybody short of funds. Walk before you run. Don't say, guys, I want to change everything. No, it takes your time. Walk before you run. But keep in mind, since I have spent a lot of time going around many of the countries when we were implementing ERP, everybody wants a technology. When you bring technology, then people grumble again. So you have to train the people. You cannot ignore the people. If people mindset is still not ready, it will fail. Even best technology will fail. So walk before you run. Again, I would advise companies to first sit down and spend time mapping it. You cannot change everything. Map it up. The process part, which process you can change quicker. So I would say again, you have to think of touching everybody around. Any process you think around, you should touch customer, vendors, managers, employees, everybody around. But pick a function, because if you start with a very complex function and if it fails, management will lose confidence in you. So pick a function that touches the least amount of people. If it touches everybody, then you are getting into resistance. So least amount of people and least expensive to automate. Because once you've done it, people will say, guys, oh, great, wonderful, done. So people mindset changes, and then you are able to do the bigger things. So start with smaller things. Again, the summary is walk before you run. Next comes up, my friend, the future profile of PSM professionals. Professionals, when we talk of procurement, supply management professionals, because procurement has become supply management. Procurement has got extended activities around many places I've seen. Logistics, this, that. So I'm calling as procurement and supply management professional. You guys need to have a big ideas around. Don't compromise easily. Brainstorm all the time. Again, keep in mind, unlearning has to be there and learning new things has to be there. So learn new skills as well. Think differently than others. If you are going to copy someone else your competitor is doing, then you're not ahead of them. They're the leaders. So you have to think in a different approach. And lastly, but not the least, is the creative as well. Well, my final thoughts before I close down. Stop assuming the old days will come back. It's not going to come back. Very basic thing, if you think of work from home. Who would have thought 2 years back? Everybody's registered it. Now people have started accepting it. I know it's affecting our personal life also, but I think people have started accepting it. It's becoming a normal norm. For companies becoming very saving approach also. They don't have to rent too much big space around. You and me have not to travel every time. So we save the cost there also. Remote working is, but some people think remote working means give a laptop to someone. No, you're missing something. Just giving a laptop does not mean anything. You need to come up with the systems, connecting them virtually also. If you're not connecting virtually, you don't understand each other's, just sending emails and then say, guys, I'm connected, then the productivity will go down. So you need to come with a new culture also of connecting people around, virtually looking at them, their body language, are they accepting you, what you're saying? So you need to do that frequently around. Accelerate the best practices of around collaborations, collaboration with supplier, collaboration with your customers, and collaboration with your other team around, even the partners also, companies also. I remember the case when the auto companies were going through tough time in the US. And when I was there, General Motors and Fords and this, the CPO of General Motors, and they know very well we are buying from the same company. You say, why don't we collaborate together? Have a bigger volumes, cut down the cost. So collaboration is going in a many different aspects as well. Flexibility. You have a plan, yes, for this month, but suddenly you come to know that this is not going to work. You should be flexible. You should be able to change. Change for the increase in volume or decrease in volume, you should be able to do it quickly. So your workload has gone up. I can understand around. Complexity has gone up. Inclusion and accountability. People should be knowing who is accountable. Stop relying on traditional organization structures. Now, when we are moving into the digital world, if my whole team is working from home, other places around, you can't work in a bureaucratic process of old pyramids. This guy will report to this guy will report to this. So you have to report 10 layers. You need to come peer-to-peer structures around. So your organizational structure has to change. The salary of each person could be different. Importance of each person could be different. That's no second thought. But we are all flat, horizontal. So that change has to come around. Then transition to agility part. We should be able to agile, change whenever we want. Don't grumble, it's part of the life now. Start redesigning supply chain. It should not be happening. I'm sure many of you look back, they did supply chain. I have also the same situation with me. We redesigned when I used to work with private sector in the US. We used to design once and we say, guys, this is going to remain for next 2 years, 3 years. Nobody will change it. Now the supply chains are being redesigned. Even the course content, like we have certification from the ISM USA, they change every 4 years. Every 4 years, the course content is changed. If somebody, and this is what I need even in the MBS program also. MBS still gives you an operation with the supply chain as a part of it. While supply chain is a big thing, operation is a part of it. So people need to change around. Accelerate next shoring, complexes operations around. There are 4 areas on focus. I would say again, recovering revenues, rebuilding operations around, and rethinking on it, and accelerating the adoption of digital solutions. Well, friend, with this, I want to thank you all for the patient hearing, but it does not end our connections around. If anybody wants to connect me later, I will be very happy to be connected. With this, again, I want to thank Shantanu and his team for organizing such a beautiful program.
Thank you so much, sir. It's always enlightening listening into you. I have a couple of questions, and if there are more questions, then please post under the Q&A tab, which you should be able to see on the right-hand side corner of your screen. I regret not informing people earlier, but those who are logged in, and I see about 120 of you logged in, please post your questions under the Q&A tab. While I read out some comments, so Akash is saying that the key to digitization, as rightfully said, is training and flawless data migration from one system to another. I think this is more of an observation. Bhaskar is again commenting on the quality of the session, which was superb. And so does Mohit. Mohit is saying excellent presentation. The question I have for you, sir, is from Gautam. He's saying, could you please explain your third slide, which talks about warning and recovery of performance?
Okay, now let me get back to that around. If any other questions before I get to the slide?
Yes, so there are a few more.
No, we're not going to do why don't we do the question and then I come to the slide part?
Okay. Yes. So with limited formal training in India for procurement and supply chain, and actually while sir we were doing live events in Gurgaon or Bombay, this has come up in our sessions in the past as well. And you also pointed this out during the session today, that procurement was not a function which people would aspire to be a part of a few years ago. And then when you went to the US, you only then realized the importance of it. Even today, the options for formal education around supply chain and procurement aren't as, well, for the lack of a better phrase, as diverse as in some of the other countries. So so the question really is, what do procurement and supply chain professionals who are aspiring, what do they need to do? What do they need to learn to be able to meet the demands of the future in terms of skilling?
Okay. Firstly, let me put this way around. The way I see around in today's generation, procurement and supply chain is a wonderful growing career. Because this is the only function which connects with everybody. If I'm working in R&D, I work in a silo. But procurement is a function. If I'm working in a company like Apple, other company, and now all are becoming like that, even in the Maruti, procurement is covering 80% of the revenue expend is in their hand. So they are in touch with the finance, they're touching with everybody. It's a wonderful carrier nowadays. But the problem with procurement is, again, they're still living with the old legacy system of procurement. They have got old suppliers. For them, it is simple placing of order and following up and asking for 10% discount, nothing more than that. Very standard. He says, okay, you're giving me this price, can you give me discount? But they don't do the homework. Okay, what is the cost of this? The guy might have inflated the price already. So you get 10% discounts, you're very happy to tell the boss, I've saved so much. But you don't know whether the guy might have fooled you even further than that. So I think this profession needs to be well professionalized, I would call around. First thing is, we have to get away from the legacies approach. Let's suppose if I'm doing negotiation, I'm not trained as a negotiator. I'm only trained as a 10% negotiator, saving wise. But I think one has to learn around how do I negotiate, and particularly if I'm dealing with the foreign suppliers, and even within the countries, culturally we are different, south, north, east. How do I deal with them? How do I start with it? How do I convince my people around? How do I persuade someone around? So that's the way I think we need, not only by emotion, but more with the logic around. So we have to learn the procurement as a profession. I think we have to give a focus on training for them. But my worry is that the training also, very few people come up for category management. Very few people come with the blockchain learning around. Very few people come with the training on digitizing the whole, designing the supply chain, also procurement chain. How do I design it? For that, people need basic skills also. Many people have seen they have come with a very basic backgrounds. They've been spending 20 years in procurement, but technology-wise, they have not been exposed to much. But now the new generation, which I see around, they're very smart. I'm sure this change will happen. And but the company should also tell them that, guys, you need to get certified. Because in the college, we don't teach procurement and supply chain. So I hired few people recently as MBA students, but they don't know much about procurement and supply chain. They only think 3 quotation, lowest price. So I think training is required, but in a proper way. That's all.
So before we address the question on the slide, there is one more which has come in from Sandeep. Now, Sandeep is asking, there are many challenges with procurement and supply chain, most we keep discussing, but in your expert opinion, which is the most critical challenge that procurement leaders will need to deal with in the near future?
They will have to deal with data first. They don't have a data. Let me tell you, big company, I don't have to tell the name around, well-known name, exporting worldwide and IT business around. So when we went around, so they were trying to talk about this, and we want to bring supplier relationship management concept in our company. I said, first I wanted data. Tell me what data you have, and I want to spread the data into 4 boxes, which are routine item, which are leverage item, which are strategic item, which are bottleneck item. Until I know that, I cannot give you answer for that. My relationship, I've got 10,000 suppliers. I'm not going to be buddy with everybody around. It needs identifying the areas around. So then they said that we don't have a coding system. They don't have a coding system. They don't have a data to spend around category-wise. I'm buying from the same supplier. My friend is also buying from the same supplier. I'm spending $2 million. My friend is spending $3 million. Put together, we are spending $5 million with the same supplier. Why can't I make a category so my volume leverage goes up and I can bring more savings around?
Yes.
So I think we are still working in silos, I would say. We need data around. I think data is missing. I've seen big companies around, data are missing around. It is not only the companies, I've got with my country also. We have the data, we say, guys, 25% of GDP is spent on procurement. But when I say, guys, can you give me the data? Now, recently we did some coding system for the government of India, but still is far, far away. People write the text in the local language in English, and then when we try to analyze it, we can't do anything. We need a code numbers.
Right. Sir, there is another question by Sandeep Kumar. He's saying in project procurement like EPC contracts, where vendor list is finalized by customer and you are bound to buy from these lists only, how do you do zero-based costing?
Now, if you want to start with a zero-based costing, that means we have to really look how much it will cost me exactly if I had to start from a scratch. Because zero-based means I'm starting from a scratch. Then I'll work it out how it's going to be costed. So here I would say, if they have done the supplier selections, then your role becomes very negligible when it comes to the power, understanding the power. The guy has been selected. They know very well I'm close to the customer. I think it is a little, I would say, affected a lot. So I think we need to think of a change. So when they are trying to identify a supplier, they should tell me the name, like no issue. They should give me the qualified supplier, but then I should select out of those pre-qualified supplier, one or two. If I don't have a choice, then I'm only becoming a pusher, nothing more than that.
Right, sir. We'll pick the last two questions. I see many more, but we'll pick two more. So the question is by Venkat, who's asking, is there any proven framework for procurement digitization to start with? There are innumerous methods in across the internet channel. So is there a proven framework?
The broad framework, again, I'm going back to data. First thing is data. Use Peter Krasik model. I would say everybody should use Peter Krasik model. Put your all data into 4 boxes, then come with the strategies on each one, then draw the framework. I will deal this item in this way, the number of suppliers, how many, and this item will be my routine item. I will deal this way, bottleneck item, how will I deal? Let me give you an example of Dell. Now, Dell works on laptops, computers, and the key thing is chip. And if chip is not there, computer, who's going to buy? And everybody wants a Pentium chip around, Intel chip around. So if Intel stops giving them the chip, who's going to buy the Dell then? So then they know very well, this is very critical. The CEO of that company and CEO of that company, they build a different relationship. But are we thinking in that fashion? Are our CEOs involved? Are our senior managers involved in the relationship? Not. So before we come with a strategic framework, we need to build a Peter Krasik model. Everybody should know it. I will not hire anybody if he doesn't have a Peter Krasik model understanding.
Roger, sir. Sir, the question is from Vaibhav Manchanda, who's asking, on the data part, capturing new sets of data requires a lot of changes in the existing ERP tools, which is usually faced with a lot of resistance internally. Do you have any examples to share where this was done without any major modifications to the system?
This is a very good question. Let me put this way, because I have gone through it. I've burned my own fingers around. 2005, we implemented ERP and I was leading it. And I was very fond of it. Let me be honest with you. For me, it was the first time. I loved it. Okay, now we have got all the data around. Then after I implemented, then I started looking when I was coming closer to my retirement. I said, guys, now we have got data, but what do we do with the data? It's like a garbage there. I don't have intelligence out of it. And if somebody wants, I just pull out the data and give it to them. That's all. And I was not learning. Then I said, guys, can we think of something doing data analytics around that? Every time we had to get the IT people. And the cost of changes was so high. I want to make a report. I had to go through the IT people. Then we said, guys, can we think of moving into the e-procurement part? And resistance is there around. I want my suppliers to be connected to ERP. Nobody will allow me. ERP has only helped, let me be honest in a blunt way, only help the finance people to connect everybody, which is a good thing. I'm not saying. At the top level is a wonderful thing. Now finance has done, enterprise-wise, we are connected. Beautiful thing. But from procurement angle, no. We need e-procurement. We need e-RFX. I need e-auction. I need e-contractment. I need e-word around everywhere. And that one I should connect with my supplier.
Sir, the questions are not ending, but if you can answer this last one. Is it practically possible to be self-reliant on own manufacturing and still be environmental friendly when it comes to the chemical industry?
Okay, now coming back to the chemical industries, I mean, efforts could be made. I'm not saying, let's be honest, there will be some carbon footprints, but efforts could be made around. That's all I can say around. I know it's not possible that you're not living in a world, you say, guys, totally no impact. Impact is bound to be there. I know World Bank came around that we want to cut down our carbon footprints. Whatever we travel, we pay for it. Okay, you can pay and cover that part around. But 100% no. Any activity comes up, commercial activity is bound to have some environmental damage.
All right, we're slightly ahead of slightly behind schedule. Mohit, who's heading supply chain with Shriram Pistons and Rings, is waiting for his turn. Dr. Batra, thank you so much, sir. I am eternally grateful.
The slide part, the person who has got a question, I can deal separately with him.
That'll be awesome, sir. Thank you so much. I will connect you with all the other people who are wanting to get advice and explore from you.
Keep in mind, this is my passion, and I love it. Anytime.
Thank you so much, sir. You are a legend. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my friend.